Hey, welcome to the Ponderings of Pete. Do you want to know what I read this month? I sure do. Oh wait, I kind of do know what I read this month. So this month I was supposed to read 8 books. I did not read 8 books. I read 4.5-ish books. I'm filming this on November 29th, so hopefully I can get done with one last one by tomorrow. Most of my month was taken up with Rhythm of War and Dawn Shard and theorizing and talking about that. But I did not finish 3 books and DNF'd 1, which is actually a surprise because it's actually very hard for me to DNF a book. Talk about that soon. So the first book that I started reading this month was Bloodline by Claudia Gray. It was a Star Wars book. I heard a few things about it. Essentially, it is how the Princess Leia split from the New Republic and started the Resistance. You know, I was hoping for a lot of interesting politics, and I got the politics, but not much of I wasn't very interested in it. This is actually the book that I DNF'd. I expected a lot more intrigue, and the mystery just wasn't there for me. I felt like every time there was a new element that was explained that was new and interesting, it was pretty much explained within a chapter. Which, you know, and told a lot. There was a lot of telling via info dumps. Like essentially it was like you heard Leia's thoughts a lot, and she would info dump things. And info dumps can be done well sometimes, but I wasn't really that interested in the writing style of this. I may pick this up later to finish it out because I kind of know the ending already. It's really not that much of a priority for me because I know the ending, so... The second book I read in November was Caliban's War by James S.A. Corey. Did I like this? Yes, I did. I did like this. This was a continuation of Leviathan Wakes. I was thinking about doing a review on this, but again, Dawn Shard and Rhythm of War stuff kind of got overwhelmed by it. Trying to figure out a schedule for myself. I am planning on continuing the series next month, however. So I did really like this. This was an expansion of the politics from Leviathan Wakes. Essentially, Earth and the Mars are at war, and the Belt are kind of at war, and there's the proto-molecule in the mix and stuff like that, even though it seemed to have been dead and gone after the first book, but it's still there because somebody still has a sample. This is a kind of an escalation of that, and it goes really a lot more in depth into specifically how Earth works, not much so about Mars, but it does, you know, give a better glimpse into the Earth and Mars politics. And I'm excited to get into Abaddon's Gate next month. So the third book I read was probably the most emotional. Well, actually, surprising, there were 2 really big books this month that kind of gave me all the feels. And the first was Sword of Kaigen. This was a buddy read with the Shelf Space server. I'm really glad I picked this up. The pacing in this book was interesting, and I think there were a few elements in this book. Specifically, I think the consensus is the last chapter or so of this book could have been like taken out and it would have been fine. It actually would have been a better book because the last chapter or so was kind of unneeded. But, oh my gosh. The deaths in this book, wow. The pacing is so interesting. It's not your traditional pacing. It's an invasion story, which is a minor spoiler, but it's an invasion story. And I think the thing this book did well is it dealt with the invasion and the aftermath of the invasion very well. And you don't really expect that. I mean, traditional pacing would dictate that, okay, you start with the invasion at the beginning, you set up the town, you start with the invasion, everything's going well, everything's like the battle's going, protagonists seem like they're getting somewhere, and then they push back. The enemies push back and everything's not going so well, and big burst of power, and then push back, ebb and flow, final battle, and then scene, and maybe a chapter or 2 after the final battle. This doesn't do that. Just letting you know, because you're going to get about halfway through the book and you realize, wait, what? This book does not take the turns you think it will. And the mom character, who is the protagonist, who is one of the 2 protagonists, she's amazing. She has to struggle with womanhood not womanhood, motherhood, when she doesn't really, it feels like she doesn't necessarily know what her role, there's a desynchronization between what her role should be and who she is. And the kind of blending together of those two things was done really well. So M.L. Wong, Sword of Kaigen, beautiful book. Go and read it. It's self-published, so another reason to go and read it because it's self-published. So the third book I read was Dawn Shard. Should have already put up at least the non-spoiler section by now, the non-spoiler video. Really love this book. It was a small novella, but it was really good, and there was a lot of great implications to add to the whole Cosmere stuff. And you have there was some really good rape representation in this book as well, because one of the main characters was disabled without use for legs. So, and Brandon Sanderson, as always, did his research and portrayed her really, really well. So go check that out. It's not required reading to just read Rhythm of War, but it adds a nice little cherry on top to Rhythm of War because it does have tiny tie-ins. But if you didn't know what happened in Dawn Shard, you're not going to really lose anything from Rhythm of War. I read Rhythm of War this month. What a surprise. This was 100% the most anticipated release of my 2020, and I absolutely loved it. Is it my favorite Stormlight Archive book? As of right now, yes. I'm going to reread it again next month in December, and we'll see if it holds up. Took me a few days to read this. I'm going to be posting a Rhythm of War reaction vlog at some point if I haven't already. But I really did love this. Great moments. I laughed. I cried. Just another beautiful book. This Cosmere really is starting to come to more of a front in this book. So honestly, would I recommend you read the Cosmere? 100%, always. Can you read this book without knowing much about the Cosmere? Yes, but there's going to be some parts that are definitely going to be brand new for you and are going to take a minute to get your head wrapped around. If you're not new to the Cosmere, there's a lot of things in this book that are going to seem really kind of familiar to you because they've been introduced in other books, but they're still kind of explained in this book, and there's a lot of Cosmere implications in this book as well. Storylines, Kaladin shines in this book, as well as Navani, which I was really excited about because she's like she's called the Mother of the Machines on the back cover. She's a patron, essentially a patron, of the sciences. She struggles with imposter syndrome a little bit, but honestly, it's really nice to see her come into her own. I honestly wish we were going to get a viewpoint book for her, but we're not. I think the next book 5 is Seth, and then book 6 is Lift, and then we're going to get Tal, Ash, and Yasna, which will be fun. I really like Navani in this book. As well, we did get nice Adolin and Shallan chapters in Shadesmar 2, Honor Spren Boogaloo. And yeah, that's Rhythm of War. I really liked it. Go read it. So the next book that I'm actually still reading is Memories of Ice, book 3 in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. I'm about halfway through. I kind of hope to finish all of it tomorrow amidst editing and work. We shall see. Work comes first, but anyways, halfway through. That'll be interesting. Maybe finish most of it tonight. But how am I liking it so far? How does one not like undead with sword-wielding dinosaurs? Like, holy moly, that's amazing. I am really liking it. It's, maintaining the complexity, but by book 3, I kind of know what's going on, sort of, and then there's a few other... I kind of know the basics, and then there's more plot lines that are getting introduced that are a lot easier to stomach than the drinking from a fire hose that was Gardens of the Moon. So it's definitely getting awesome. I'm looking forward to see more of the Siege of Capustan, which is happening in this book, evidently. And yeah, so far it's great. And I will probably have a review out of this eventually this month. Might do House of Chains with it, but we'll see. So those were actually the only books that I read this month. It came out to like 4.5, roughly, depending on how you want to count Memories of Ice and the novella, and Bloodlines or whatever. But I definitely overextended myself, and I'm going to be doing that again in December for reasons. The ones that I did not get to, sadly, Dynasty of Evil. This was a buddy read for a Star Wars book club that I didn't get to. I'm putting this on the I will get to this eventually Schindler's List. This was kind of a last minute, oh hey, this would be fun to read this week or this month. Again, it's another one that it's just like I really want to read it eventually, but I have so many series that I'm looking into and I got just overwhelmed with everything. So maybe when I get done with a bunch of series, I will look back into Schindler's List. Last one, Infinite Jest. I barely touched this one this month, but however, this is my expansion read, so this will be carrying over to December. So I'll touch it if I have time, essentially. With the buddy read that I'm doing for Shelf Space, I doubt I will have time, but it'll be on my TBR nonetheless. All right, those are the books that I read in December. I hope you enjoyed this video. There will be links down below for bookshop.org if you're interested in buying any of these books. Outside of Dawn Shard, there may not be a link for that yet because it's only ebook. But nonetheless, I'll try to find a link for you. Most of those links down below should be affiliate links, so I will gain a small commission off of them. But what you do buy does actually benefit local bookstores. So go ahead and, support your local bookstores because they definitely need it in this time of COVID. Thank you. If you liked, give me a like. If you want to see more, go ahead and subscribe. Hit that bell notification so you can be notified when I upload new videos. Have a good night.